There's just so much.
You're listening to a Mamma Mia podcast.
Mamma Mia acknowledges the traditional owners of land and waters that this podcast is recorded on. Hello and welcome to Mamma Mia Out Loud. It's Wednesday, the 29th of May, and I'm Holly Wainwright.
I'm Mia Freedman. And I'm Jessie Stevens.
And on the show today, did you see that video of the woman running the half marathon and her husband ushered their kids into her path just when she was about to win? Yes, you did. And everything you think about that video is wrong. Sorry about that. Also, Generation Alpha have entered the chat and everything's skibidi toilet, and not feeling it today. Perhaps it's time for some unhappiness leave. But first, Jessie.
Today, Dr. Christos Christou, who is the president of Doctors Without Borders, said on ABC Radio National that he has run out of words to describe the horrors of the situation in Gaza. This week, a deadly airstrike in the area of Rafah in southern Gaza killed at least 45 Palestinians and wounded dozens of others. This is a place that the Israel Defense Force had declared safe. It is where Palestinians have fled as Israel forces continue their offensive. Just last week, the International Court of Justice ordered Israel to halt its military operation in Rafah, noting the immense risk to the hundreds of thousands of Palestinians taking shelter there with nowhere to go. The international community, from President Joe Biden to French Prime Minister Emmanuel Macron to our own Foreign Minister Penny Wong, who said, "Do not go down this path," all foresaw what was going to happen in Rafah. So what did happen? Palestinians were sheltering in tents, seeking refuge from the bombardment they have faced for 7 months now. And according to the mayor of Rafah, the IDF launched more than 7 missiles, which killed men, women and children. These civilians were killed in ways I do not wish to detail. The horrors are too much to bear. The last hospital in Rafah is on the brink of no longer functioning, so there were few services to treat burns. Displaced people dug through the rubble in an attempt to find the bodies of their families, of their babies. Then came the international condemnation. This is what Foreign Minister Penny Wong said in the Senate.
You may recall that the Prime Minister and I have both said in relation to Rafah, our message to the Netanyahu government, do not go down this path. The international community has been one on this. What we have seen in the past 24 hours reinforces why we and the international community issued this warning. The death and destruction in Rafah is horrific. This human suffering is unacceptable. And we reiterate to the government of Israel, this cannot continue.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has referred to what happened as a tragic mishap. And yet, emerging reports indicate that such an attack has happened again, with 21 people killed by an alleged Israeli airstrike in a so-called safe area. 13 are believed to be women and children. This rhetoric of a tragic mishap is something we've heard again and again. We spoke a few months ago about a 6-year-old girl. There was audio of her calling for emergency aid after she had fled with her family, all of whom had been killed by an Israeli army tank who shot at their vehicle. The call then went silent, and Hind Rajab was also killed. Australian journalist Jan Fran has shared a series of these so-called mistakes, from the Israeli military admitting it was a mistake killing aid workers, Palestinian civilians walking down the street, a 4-year-old girl, journalists, 3 Israeli hostages. We have watched as maternity hospitals have been destroyed, premature babies died at Al-Shifa Hospital. I mean, the list goes on. The anger and distress in the atmosphere right now is palpable. Following World War II, there were peace treaties and the UN was formed and the Geneva Convention set up laws of war. And to sit inside our homes today and watch as displaced people are killed, this is the stuff of nightmares. Holly, there was even a shift at the ICC last week, wasn't there?
There was. So that's the International Criminal Court, right? And what they do is they investigate and lay charges on major issues of international concern, right? So think major acts of terrorism, war crimes, and what they call crimes against humanity. And what they did last week, and it actually shocked a lot of people because everybody's been watching this conflict rage now for 7 months. And every now and again, things get so horrific as they have this week that it sort of spikes through all the other news stories around, all other kinds of consciousness, and everybody's saying, how can this still be happening and how can nobody be stopping it? And a lot of levers have been pulled to try to bring around a ceasefire and to try and stop it. And one of them was what the International Criminal Court did. So after an investigation last week, they issued warrants. So literally like warrants for arrest. I mean, it's a little more complicated than that, but that's kind of how it works. For 3 Hamas leaders in Gaza and Qatar over October the 7th. The charges that they laid for the crimes that they want those 3 people arrested on are crimes against humanity, including extermination, murder, hostage-taking, rape and torture. The thing that shocked a lot of people is they also charged Netanyahu and his defense minister, a guy called Yoav Gallant. They charged them with crimes that include the starvation of civilians of a weapon of war, murder, extermination, and intentional attacks on civilians. Obviously, it's international law and it's complex, but in theory, there's sort of a warrant out for Netanyahu and these other people that if he entered a member state of the ICC, like the UK, for example, he would have to be arrested. There was a lot of fury about that in Israel because they were saying this is false equivalence. You're putting us in the same bucket as the terrorist organisation Hamas. That's not actually true because the charges are different. The charges are separate. What the International Criminal Court was trying to do is pull one of these levers to kind of get... I mean, a really flippant way of saying it is like the grown-ups in the room to take this more and more seriously. And it felt like some sympathy was swinging to Netanyahu then because a lot of people who have any skin in the game were saying, come on, you can't do that. What's happened in Rafah this week has upended all that again because the ICC and the ICJ, and the ICJ is like a court that deals with states and the ICC deals with individuals. But either way, they're trying to step in and say, we're laying charges, we're doing all these different things. There are motions being passed at the UN and nothing is working. And I think for a lot of people, and I would say maybe particularly young people who are kind of watching all this happen and getting to grips with how the world works, they're like, how can I be seeing this unrelenting horror on my phone, on my TV, constantly in my life, and nobody is stepping in to stop it?
We're hearing outlouders say that this has fundamentally changed them. I really agree with that assessment. I think seeing some of the images, hearing the stories, the sense that there is no world order, that you can do this after the horrors of the 20th century, that this can be done by a country that, as you say, is allied with the West, is very hard to reconcile. I don't think that any of us can grasp the despair of living in Palestine right now, what that must be like.
When you go on social media, it's very different to when you're talking to people in real life. When you're talking to people in real life, the mood is grief and devastation and shock and despair and all of those things. On social media, there is a huge amount of anger, and I also understand that. I understand that when people feel helpless and they feel devastated and they're grieving, anger is it's a very normal human reaction to what we're seeing, but it can also fool you into believing that you are doing something with your anger. And I'm not saying there's not a place for anger or that anger is not appropriate at the outrageous things that we're seeing and the devastating footage.
I don't think we know where to put it.
No, it's like, what do we do with this? What do we do with these images? Is sharing them going to help? How is it going to help? Like, what can we in Australia do?
I've thought about this a lot and I've had some really productive conversations about putting pressure on politicians. There's a little bit of a lack of transparency about weapon manufacturing and how much Australia has to do with that. And I think that's something that's important. I think Australia pulling every lever that they can is something that when you get a groundswell of, you know, I mean, and protest just demonstrating like not in our name. This is not something that any of us support is important.
You know, I have to say as a Jewish woman, there's this idea among some people that if you're Jewish or if you believe in the right of Israel to exist or if you object to people saying from the river to the sea, you don't care, that you are not affected by these images, that you are fine with what's happening in Rafah.
Or that you cheer it on.
Or that, good God. And I just find that so extraordinary and bizarre, the idea that you could only be allowed to care about one group of people and about one type of suffering and the suffering of only certain people but not other people. I've been deeply shocked by that. I've never seen a story like that. And of course, there was a poll that came out last week that said something like 75% of Australians have empathy for both Palestinians and Israelis because they can see that Israeli people and what happened on October 7th is not the same as what the Israeli government is doing and what has happened in Rafah. I don't know anyone who's watching what's happening in Rafah, no matter what their religion and what their belief about Israel, and is not devastated by it.
Mm. There's no one braver in my mind than the aid workers, the organisations who are continuing to try and get some practical help on the ground.
Which
in
is,
Gaza,
it can be, as we've seen, it's a lethal decision.
One of the stories I found very affecting but had a kind of almost hopeful turn this week was actually about the problems of getting aid through in some instances, because one of the crossings that's recently been opened for aid convoys on the West Bank in Israel was getting attacked by extremists who are ransacking and burning the aid trucks to try and stop the aid from getting through, which is devastating, right? But then an organisation of mostly young Jewish and Arab peace activists have formed a humanitarian guard there to get stop those abhorrent attacks and get the aid through. They're called Standing Together. I urge anyone to follow them on social. They're remarkable. But I just want to say, because it isn't simple, we've been talking on this show and providing links to aid organisations. It isn't simple because there is no more dangerous place in the world right now than Gaza. So it is not as simple as send your money and someone will get a meal. But there are some unbelievably brave organisations. We're going to shout a couple of them out and put them in the show notes. You mentioned before, Jessie, Doctors Without Borders, whose doctors on the ground are obviously beyond exhausted and beyond capacity, are working in what's left of the hospitals and health organisations all over Gaza. There's an incredible organisation called the World Central Kitchen, and people might have heard of it because 7 of their workers were killed in an IDF strike a few months ago, and they had to suspend operations. And what they do, and this kind of sounds a bit strange when you first hear about it, they're an organisation of volunteer chefs, and they go into war zones all over the world, and they work with local people and local cooks there to literally set up camp kitchens. They know exactly how to do it, exactly what's needed, massive pots, sort of the containers that need to go, the sort of food local people want to eat, and they cook it and they distribute it, and they've restarted their operations in Gaza now. Again, an incredible organisation. Also, Plan International, which focuses on children, particularly girls. UNICEF, which is the UN charity that gets aid to kids. We're going to put links in the show notes. If you are able to make a donation to any of these organisations, then I urge you to do so.
This is a fast-moving story, so to keep across this news, please tune into our twice-daily news podcast, The Quickie, for the latest information.
We'll be back in a moment.
Bumble clap. Yeah, there! You got that Ohio skibidi Riz?
What the Sigma? What does it mean and why are kids saying it?
In case you missed it, Generation Alpha, who are people younger than 14, have made up some new words. Ohio, Guyot, Sigma, Rizla, and skibidi toilet.
I feel like I might know what Rizla means.
What's Rizla?
I feel like it could be related to Riz, which we learnt about last year, which is charisma. And we all decided I didn't have it, which I still feel weird about.
You don't.
I know she does.
But apparently I do.
Do I have skibidi toilet?
So I don't know if I'm a Rizla or not. Now, you may be confused. We all have been. Let's just talk about Gen Alpha for a while. Examples are Blue Ivy, who is the daughter of Beyonce and Jay-Z.
Oh.
Kim Kardashian and Kanye West's eldest daughter, Northwest.
I see a lot of her TikToks.
As I said, the oldest of this generation are 14 and they were born in the years after 2010. And kids their age are making trends and creating slang terms online. We don't know what they mean. I just texted my daughter, who is 18, skibidi toilet. She texted back, "What is this?" And then she said, her girlfriend says, "You are not woke, me are just strange."
I live with 2 alphas, obviously. My kids are alphas. And I asked Matilda yesterday, my daughter, 14-year-old daughter, what skibidi toilet meant. And she was so mortified that I even asked the question. She just immediately got on her phone and sent a voice note to her friend. This is how they carry on. She got a voice note to her friend being like, "Mum, just ask me." And she said, "You're not going to say it. You're not going to say it on the show, are you? You're not going to say it." And then I asked Billy, who's 11, And he said it doesn't really mean anything. You just like say it. You just say it. And I was like, I don't understand.
How do we explain to them they don't know how language works?
Okay, well, not everyone agrees on its meaning. It is disputed. It originated from the Russian rave band Little Big.
See, this is the problem.
Wait,
what are
there's
you
more.
talking about?
A remix was made of the song.
A remix of what by whom?
Little Big song. A remix was made of the song and then repurposed on YouTube by the channel Da Fuck Boom.
Okay. Okay. Too many steps.
Skibidi toilet.
In the clip, I'm getting to the good part. In the clip, it shows a head in a toilet singing a song.
All right.
It doesn't really mean anything. It's just an inside joke, apparently.
I remember I tried to get them to use it in a sentence. No.
You know that I'm going to be saying it constantly.
And they will never use it again.
What's my new Cosy Lives? People say Ohio, and that's sort of short for only in Ohio, which means something that's weird or strange or creepy, like us, using the phrase skibidi toilet. So it's an insult because Ohio is apparently considered to be a bit of a weird place.
That feels offensive to Ohioans.
Yes.
Guyet or Giet or Gat, I don't know, means big bottom.
Oh.
Sigma
I know about that
is
one.
widely known as the 18th letter of the Greek alphabet. The Greek alphabet.
Is that the alphabet that the Gen Alphas have
It's not
invented?
widely known by me, but whatever. Apparently it means a man who is popular and dominant, and they may also have traditional values that
That's
typically
just an
comes
alpha.
off as sexist.
I think Sigma has come out of the manosphere, but I think it also means kind of cool.
What's an alpha then?
I don't think Sigmas have to be like muscly.
Okay. All right, got it.
A Rizzler is a derivative of the word charisma, but it means someone who is a pro at flirting with people or has good game. So it actually has sexual connotations more, whereas just saying that someone's got Riz is not about sex. It's about their personality.
They're 14. None of them have good game. None of them are Rizzlers.
Yeah.
They're walking around going skibidi dibbity toilet.
Tell me.
Skibidi dibbity.
It's not game.
Toilet.
Okay, I need to clear up another internet problem for you. In the middle of this very tumultuous time that we're living in, for a few days last week, all of the internet's wrath was directed at one man. And he was a Brazilian husband who took his children to watch their mother run a race and allowed the kids to run onto the road. Did you see this?
I did. This poor man got cancelled. I was very confused because when you see the internet's angry about something and you're like, okay, I better get across this. And I'm like, right, so is it a heartwarming clip about a woman running across the finish line? And I'm like, oh no, someone's been cancelled. It's not a heartwarming clip about a woman completing a marathon. It's a cancellation clip about a man behaving badly. What did he do?
What he did and what the world thinks he did are two different things. Or maybe not. So the reason everybody got upset is because this woman, who a half marathon is a long way and she'd obviously trained very hard and she was winning. And just as she gets to the line, he ushers the children into her path and she swerves around them. Like she doesn't stop. She swerves around them to finish and cross the line and win her marathon. Yay.
It nearly cost her the first place.
And everybody said how typical that man was so overlooking after his own children for an hour and 40 minutes.
It was quite funny because she had to run around them.
Yeah, she swerved. She went around them like that he couldn't wait to hand them back. And they said, this is so typical of a man stepping on a woman's achievement. This is da-da-da-da-da, right?
Shut up.
I'm going to defend that in a minute. But then what happened is, at the weekend, the woman and the man came out. And she's called Luciana Lorenzo and he's called Pedro Lorenzo. And Luciana cleared up that what Pedro had done was exactly what she'd asked him to do and that they'd agreed together. She said this was a fun run, well, not a fun run, but it was a race in her hometown.
There's nothing fun about a run.
She thought it would be fun for the girls to come and see her do it, like how inspirational. But the thing is she didn't think she was going to win, right? She just thought she was going to run it. And so she said to Pedro, bring the girls down, stand near the finish line. And when I pass,
He was following instructions.
the kids can join and we might all run over the finish line together. But then what happened is Luciana was a much better runner than she even thought she was. And she was in first place and she was going to win. And then her husband ushered the kids in front of her and she was like, get those fuckers out of the way. I'm going to win my race. So she said, then when I realized I was going to win, I saw the kids and I was like, no, can't do family time now. I'm going to cross the line. And she said, the kids were fine and happy and not upset at all. And they were proud and excited. So that's good. But what I want to say is this. Yes, it's true that the internet got very upset with this man for no reason. But why did we all make that assumption? I think that's because we've all been there.
Yes, this is a classic tale of the internet finding something that helps them tell a specific story they would like to tell today.
Yes.
And it actually wasn't about the video
No.
and it wasn't about the facts.
Did the internet apologise?
It wasn't about
And make a
Luciana, it was
correction?
about us.
And you know what? I reckon that a really important piece of context was the Harrison Butker graduation speech that had been just the week before.
We are in a bad mood.
We were riled. We were pissed. We were like, women can't have anything. Even when we graduate, it's just like
didn't
your
join
greatest
those
joy
dots.
is going to be your kids and your
100%.
husband and being a wife and a mother. And then we see a woman running to a finish line and it's like the husband and the children descend and it's like that woman should kick those people out of the way to have her moment of glory.
It's like, back off, this isn't about you.
Yes.
That was a bit like, there are a lot of videos when Taylor Swift started her concert about people proposing during the song Love Story, like, you know, marry me, Juliet is the line. And that was the moment in that song that a lot of people dropped to one knee. That's, if you're going to propose, you're going to do it then. And so that's kind of been happening all over the tour. And a lot of people were really pushed back about it. And it started with Taffy Brodesser-Akner's amazing piece about being at a Taylor Swift concert. And she said, and she acknowledged that she was projecting, but a lot of Swifties spoke about this, that she took something that belonged to that woman, which is that song meaning something to her, and he imposed himself on it.
That's exactly what people thought were happening in this video. And they also, I think mothers in particular looked at it and went, this is like when I just want to go to the gym for an hour on a Saturday morning and I get all this, when's it my turn to have some time off? And it's like when you get a promotion and it's all like, what are you going to do about childcare? And when you want to go away for a weekend and it's like, well, are you going to organise drop-off sporting things? Who's eating what? Who's going where? Like,
and you're like, I'd like to go for a walk. And your husband's like, family time.
Yeah.
I think that your walk sounds like family time.
Basically, we all projected our shit onto Luciano and Pedro, who were actually doing absolutely fine.
Jessie, I saw you on the project last night. Who was looking after Luna while you were gallivanting around the country?
I know. Look, I didn't even consider Luna.
Did
in
you
my
get a
gallivanting.
babysitter?
Oh, no, it was my husband. Yeah, no.
He's not a babysitter.
He was babysitting, exactly right. So that when mummy works, it's not a family affair. Luna's not invited.
Want unlimited Out Loud access? We drop episodes every Tuesday and Thursday exclusively for Mamma Mia subscribers. Follow the link in the show notes to get us in your ears 5 days a week. And a huge thank you to all our current subscribers.
Should all workers get unhappiness leave? That is the headline on a Guardian story this week that highlighted the policy of a Chinese supermarket chain called Pangdong Lai, whose founder is offering all employees up to 10 days of unhappiness leave. According to the South China Morning Post, Yu Donglai said at an industry conference, I want every staff member to have freedom. Everyone has times when they're not happy, so if you're not happy, do not come to work. Staff can take unhappy days when they want, in addition to normal sick and holiday leave entitlements, and management cannot refuse.
So it is in addition to?
It is. So in the olden days, if you wanted to take a day off work and you weren't sick, you would chuck a sickie. I don't know why you would chuck one. That's very Australian, but I loved that. I chucked many a sickie from school, learned how to forge my mum's signature, worked a treat. But in 2024, there is a long list of leave that employees can take. There's annual leave and sick leave, carers leave, parental leave, compassionate and bereavement leave, family and domestic violence leave in some organisations. And if you've been somewhere a long time, you can also take something called long service leave. Some companies also offer extra days for menstrual leave. There are days for gender reassignment leave. Of course, there's also parental leave. At Mamma Mia, we offer a day of birthday leave.
You do.
It's called your Mamma Mia Day on your birthday. But would you take unhappiness leave? Holly?
Well, do you have to tell everybody that you're unhappy? I have two questions.
The part I don't like.
Yeah, like if I'm really unhappy, I don't really want to tell everybody.
Because then your boss feels obligated to say, what are you unhappy about? And then you've got to tell them and they don't care and you don't want to tell them. And then what? Are they going to make you feel better?
Isn't it just called a mental health day?
Mental health day or a doona day or whatever we might want to call them. I'm fascinated to know if we've evolved past sickies because now culturally we've embraced the idea of self-care, we've embraced the idea of fighting burnout. We've embraced all those things. So now if you're just like, I really need a day, is it okay? Or do you still have to do things like we used to have to do in the old days, where the day that you come back after the sickie, you have to try and remember to talk like this for a certain portion of the day.
Yeah. And keep in line what you were sick with.
Yeah.
You can't say, oh, the headache was really bad when apparently you're on the toilet all day.
Yeah.
Some workplaces have a thing where you can't text that you're sick. You have to ring.
Oh, the text has saved me many a time.
Until very recently, that was a big debate, but seems to have been resolved. So do you think that sickies are dead and therefore it doesn't really matter what you call the leave, it's just leave that you can take?
Well, you have personal/carers leave, right? So if I'm fashioning a text, I will often detail what it is. So I've got a really bad cough, can't come to work today, whatever. But if you just sent a message, if you received a message as a manager and it just said, can't come to work today, see you tomorrow, does that sound, do you have to give a reason still?
Grumpy. I would be grumpy. I don't manage people anymore, but I did for many years. And if you just sent me can't come today, sorry, I'd be like, I need more detail. If you ever text Mia and say you're sick, she wants a lot of detail. And that's not because she wants to prove you wrong. It's just because she thinks she's a doctor.
Yeah,
so
I provide helpful advice.
She will immediately say, oh, well, when did it come on and what do you think? And then she'll be like,
what
you
you've
should
got
do
is
this.
this
And you should,
strand.
exactly.
And I also want to know, when did you start feeling sick and how recently did I see you?
Yes, she's very, very germ phobic like that. There's a bit of me that loves it and a bit of me that hates it, right? Because what we have recognised is that rest is important. If you want to get the best out of people, the idea of work till you fall over, we have kind of moved culturally, certainly, and I mean, I know this might be a bit generational, people have moved past that. They're like, to get the best out of your employees and get the best out of people, you've got to let them have a bit of a break sometimes.
I used to let my kids have mental health days when they were at school.
I don't do that.
Do you believe in it?
I don't do it. I used to be very strict. I was thinking this yesterday because my daughter had a day off school yesterday because she wasn't feeling well. And I said to Brent,
what was wrong with
my leg, she had a sore throat. I said to Brent,
Do you have a sore throat?
when
When did you start getting sick?
When I was a kid, my leg had to be falling off, right, to be allowed to stay home.
Really?
No, absolutely no sickies were tolerated at all in my house. And that's because I had two working parents. And obviously once you get to a certain age where you can just be home alone, but right up until then, you being sick is a massive problem for them. I remember my mum was a teacher through a lot of that time. And I sometimes had to go and sit at the back of her classroom. I have a lot of memories of that, which was punishment enough in itself for you to never want to throw a sickie, because watching your mum be a teacher is kind of mortifying. So I think it's quite ingrained in me, and I don't let them have mental health days. But I do that assessment that you do where you go, maybe you're not really sick, but you're really tired. Is it an important day? What's on today?
Yeah.
Will you miss anything important? Da, 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 da. And when you've got kids with certain issues, you've got a lot of appointments and all those things. So I'm not as strict about it as my parents were, but I'm strict about it on myself because I think I grew up with that ingrained in me. And I've never in my life just called up and said, I'm not coming to work today because I'm sad. Like, I couldn't even do it. Could you imagine?
Wouldn't go down well in Manchester.
Like, I couldn't even do it. But do I admire it and think that maybe we should all like give ourselves, because really the thing about this, even from a boss's perspective,
People
is you're
sight
no
of what a
good.
job is.
But I know, but you're no good to me if you come in here and you're just miserable and moping around and not doing anything and hanging around in the kitchen whinging and like.
If I'm sad though, I think I would rather be at work and then spend my happy days off. Like, why would I want to spend my sad day at home? It feels like such an absolute.
Bring it to work.
Yeah, that's the thing. I did read this incredible article in The Guardian, and it was all about the idea of a life sabbatical. So if you're unhappy, don't stop at one day. Take a year. So Emma Gannon took a year off, and she has a new book called The Year of Doing Nothing, which is my goal.
Well, so that's like Eat, Pray, Love. Like, it's easy to do that if you get a massive book advance.
And you just write a
for
book on
writing
doing
about
nothing, which
your
is not
year.
nothing. Writing a
That's
book
not
isn't
That's
nothing.
what annoys me about those kind of books. I love Emma Gannon. I'm not criticising her, but people who tell you that they weren't doing anything and they were writing a book, mate, you are not helping. Like, writing a book is a lot of work.
But I found useful in this. It said what you should do, right, if you want to rest, if you're going to throw your unhappiness day or if you're going to throw a sickie, is rest is the opposite to what you do in the office all day. So it was saying that if you're a teacher, for example, and your job is giving a lot of instructions, your day off or your holiday has to involve you giving giving no instructions. So like someone else decides where you're going to have dinner. And then
100%.
because you have sort of decision fatigue. And I think it's the same with us. It's like when we recharge, because our jobs are so much talking and quite social in nature, it's like our rest has to look like sitting in a dark room,
Bed rot,
rocking back and forth. I thought that was very, very true.
I've got a really good episode of Mid coming up next week, friends, about burnout. And that's exactly what the author Catherine May says. She says rest is relative to everybody. Like the idea that rest just means lying on a couch is not true.
If you're all flexing your podcasts and your projects and stuff, I, this week, got up early to go do an interview for No Filter, which is my podcast, about the 7 different types of rest. And she didn't show up and I was very tired because I got up very early.
Was she resting?
I don't know. I wasn't happy though. I did that thing because I had to get up early. I woke up all through the night, like 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Should have taken an unhappiness day, Mia.
I should have.
Outlouders. By now, I really hope you've all watched it. The Idea of You, Anne Hathaway. Honestly, if you're having an unhappiness day, may I suggest watching that film on repeat?
What if the Outlouders said that they watched it on their Doona day?
Do you know,
Yes,
there's a
perfect.
scene in that, and we should talk about this at some stage, maybe on a different subs episode, about the return of digital penetration as a sex scene. You didn't expect me to say that, did
digital
you?
penetration?
Fingering.
Did I miss the fingering in that film?
You did.
When did that happen?
Also in Bridgerton. It's everywhere that I look at the moment.
Fingering is back.
It's a trend.
Let's do a subs episode on fingering.
Out loud as you heard it here first.
I'm trying to remember the fingering. I'm
remind
sorry.
me of the
Outlouders, I'm sorry.
It is a very
Mia's
hot
really
sex
lowered the
scene.
tone. Stop
Okay.
it.
Guys, skibidi toilet.
Okay. Mia watched it and gave Holly and I homework to watch it. And then we had an interesting chat about the idea of
Clearly
you.
wasn't watching it closely enough because she missed the fingering scene.
Yes, it must have been quick.
Okay.
That's yesterday's subscriber episode. If you want to watch it, all about the idea of you, here is a sneak peek.
The idea here, right,
Yeah.
is an interesting one. He's 24, she's 40, he's famous, she's not. But she looks 24 and her body's like a 24-year-old body.
Yep.
So a lot of the tension there, and there is a bit of a scene in there where she's supposed to feel really self-conscious about being in her swimmers in front of hot young girls and things.
And she stands in front of the mirror and I'm like,
know.
oh no, I'm a Victoria's Secret angel.
100%. All right, that's it. I'm calling time. We're done for today. Mia's brought up fingering. We all need to go back to our desks. We are going to be back in your ears on Friday when we'll be doing one of our Off the News episodes and sorting out all your friendship issues and ours, especially after that conversation. With enormous thanks to our amazing team, Emmeline Gazillas. The assistant producer of our show is Tali Blackman. We've had audio production from Leah Porges, and a special thanks to our wonderful brand manager, Kerry Scott Jackson. And we'll see you back here on Friday.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Shout out to any Mamma Mia subscribers listening. If you love the show and want to support us as well, subscribing to Mamma Mia is the very best way to do so. There is a link in the episode description.